Thanks, Emily, and thank you to the candidates in the audience for joining us for this important conversation this morning. Addressing public safety concerns in downtown continues to be a top priority for the DSA and our members and ratepayers. We know that making real progress on these issues is an essential element of achieving a full post-pandemic downtown recovery. Both of the races we're discussing this morning will have a significant impact on how escalating crime is addressed in our community. This forum is the second part of DSA's candidate evaluation process for this election cycle. Prior to today's conversation, all four of the candidates you'll hear from submitted responses to a brief questionnaire that you can find in the advocacy section of our website. Both the questionnaire responses and this forum will inform our candidate alignment ratings, which will be published on our website and public communications prior to ballots arriving in the mail. Thanks again for your engagement in these important races, and the DSA looks forward to continuing to work with each of these offices on issues of downtown public safety moving forward. So now I'll hand it off to our moderators, Cairo 7's Graham Johnson and Cairo Radio's Hannah Scott.
Good morning. Welcome to our viewing audience, and of course to our two candidates for Seattle Municipal Court Judge Position 7, Najat Rose-Akins and Judge Damon Shadid.
The rules this morning are pretty simple. Each candidate is going to get 2 minutes to reply to a question. Candidates will mostly be answering the same question, and if rebuttals are needed at the discretion of the moderator, they'll be kept to 30 seconds to keep things moving. We're going to try to give time reminders in the chat function of Zoom that it will be visible to the candidates.
And to close the debate, each candidate will get 1 minute to answer a question posed to them by their opponent.
But before we get to all of that, we want to give 1 minute for opening remarks to share more about yourself and what you feel you'll bring to the bench.
We will use last names to go in alphabetical order. So Judge Rose-Akins, that means you start things off with your opening statement.
Okay, thank you. And I guess first off, I'm not a judge as of yet, but I am a candidate. But thank you for this opportunity. My name is Najat Rose-Akins, and I'm running for position 7 on the Seattle Municipal Court bench. I love Seattle. I became a U.S. citizen here, but I've seen the breakdown in collaboration across the city. I'm running to help repair that breakdown, improve the community's confidence in the court, and to return to an individualized approach to judicial decision-making. I've been serving the city of Seattle for the last 12 years in the city attorney's office. For the first 6 of those years, I worked in the criminal division. In that role, I learned a deep understanding of all the cases that come before the court. I resolved cases in mental health court, domestic violence court, and community court. My understanding for how a criminal case affects all those involved has further deepened as I have regularly served as a pro tem judge in King County District Court. These are the experiences that have shaped my judicial philosophy. Judges should always lead with compassion, but they must also consider the facts presented and the law. Thank you.
Judge Shadid, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Judge Damon Shadid. I am the incumbent in position 7 at Seattle Municipal Court. And over the past 8 years, I have a proven track record of both reform and collaborating with all city partners. A couple of examples of that are that I was the driving force behind creating a new community court. That was 2 years of negotiations between the city attorney's office and the Department of Public Defense, in which we meet regularly, we make changes to the program, and we continue with the program. Under City Attorney Davidson, the referrals to community court have doubled in the past quarter. Also, mental health court, I've expanded the court and I have made more concrete release plans that keep dangerous individuals under control so that we can make sure that they don't cause more disruption to the public, as well as a consolidated calendar, which works with defendants who are already involved in case management in the community. But we have much more work to do. It is not lost upon me that crime in Seattle is up, and that we have to have better solutions in order to resolve these issues. And I look forward to both partnering with the DSA as well as getting your feedback on how you feel my programs are working. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Rose-Akins, we have the first question here for you. Now, in the written responses to DSA, both of you wrote about how siloed municipal court is from other branches of government. We're curious what partnerships with other departments you think would be beneficial for public safety and why, and how could you help create those partnerships?
Thank you. So as in my current position as a city attorney, I partner with lots of city departments in order to get my job done. And I see that that is somewhat lacking in the court. I believe the court should be partnering with human services, should be partnering with the regional homeless authority, should be partnering with many other outside entities such as, Evergreen Treatment Services, as well as transitional resources. There's so many opportunities for the court to partner with not only government entities, but also outside entities to really stand up programs that can really assist and better help individuals who are committing crimes. Right now, I believe the court is very siloed and there is not a whole lot of intervention that really allows for proper wraparound services to really help individuals.
Judge Shadid, the same question now to you. What partnerships with other departments do you think would be beneficial for public safety and why? How can you help create those partnerships?
You bet. Unfortunately, my opponent has not been on the court for 6 years. If she had been on the court and known what we were doing, she would know that we're already making these partnerships. Let me just name a few. We have our Court Resource Center, which has direct partnerships with many organizations in the community. We make regular referrals to Evergreen Treatment Services. We induct people onto Suboxone. We sign people up for mental health and substance use treatment. So many different ways we can address people with wraparound services. We create a community court specifically to partner with the community resources, and we make regular referrals to the community. We partnered with other organizations like LEAD and Vital on our consolidated calendar to make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel and making people do things that they're already doing in the community. We partnered with CAO and DPD, which we could never get any of this done without partnerships from the prosecutors and public defenders. They're all completely on board, and I was the one responsible for breaking down those silos and bringing us together. Sure, we still need to break down more silos, but I have a proven track record of creating these types of collaborations both in the community and with governmental organizations, and I plan to keep doing that work.
Thank you, Judge Shadid. Through August of this year, King County prosecutors filed 35 drug dealing cases from just in the area of 3rd Avenue and Pine downtown. That includes 10 that involve people with illegal guns. But because of the temporary Blake law passed by the legislature last year, personal drug use is now a misdemeanor that comes with mandatory pre-arrest referral to services, at least for the first 2 times, essentially tying the hands of the police. What challenges is municipal court experiencing because of the Blake law, and what permanent solution to Blake would you like state lawmakers to make this session to improve public safety? Judge Shadid, I'll start with you.
Sure. I will be honest with you. The impact of Blake has not affected the municipal court to a great degree at this point. Right now, we're in the very early stages of the new law, and we're still assessing exactly how what's going to happen with the court. However, as far as making sure the community is safe, I would greatly encourage law enforcement to concentrate on the suppliers and the dealers. We know that prosecuting low-level offenders has not decreased the open-air drug markets that are endemic in downtown. We need to get to the source of the problem. Decriminalization is not the answer. All that does is attracts more drugs into the area. Legalization is not something that I care to make a point of. What we need to do is we need to arrest and we need to connect. And if people aren't willing to be connected with services, then they need to be prosecuted. But first, we have to at least give them the opportunity to get out of the system. Municipal court will be dealing with low-level possession, not with dealers. That will be addressed in Superior Court. Sorry for going too long.
Oh, you're fine. Ms. Rose Akins, the same question now to you. What do you see as challenges in municipal court that might be experienced because of the Blake law? And what do you think the permanent solution should be?
So I think the biggest challenge right now is that there is not a law on the Seattle Municipal Court books where the Seattle Municipal Court can handle some of those cases. All those cases for drug possession would go to the county. So I think that could be one solution, that city council could potentially have create a law that mirrors the RCW where SMC can in fact handle some of those cases, because currently all of those misdemeanor cases would go to the county if and when filed. So I think that that is one solution that could potentially assist in helping with dealing with some of these issues. Additionally, As Judge Deed said, most of those cases do not necessarily impact Seattle Municipal Court. However, I believe they actually do impact the court, because a lot of the issues down on 3rd and Pike and Pine are definitely drug-induced offenses, a lot of the thefts and issues that are happening in that area. So I believe if we had a stronger community court that would actually focus on some of the drug market outside of just the drugs, the theft rings, and some of those issues, that maybe we could also come at it from another angle, instead of just only focusing on the drugs, but also focusing on the market that the drugs and that environment are producing.
Ms. Rose-Aikens, you wrote in your DSA questionnaire that the criminal justice system must explore multiple options to curb behaviors that harm communities. I'm wondering if you could be more specific on what those multiple options are, if they are currently being explored, and if not, what role you see yourself having as a judge to create such programs.
Yes, so I guess just a quick rebuttal to a comment that my opponent made in regards to me having not been in court. I actually was in court in 2021, working in the court, addressing cases. So that is first and foremost. Also, in regards to what the court can do is looking at community court currently, the court takes 14 days, 30 days, and 45 days of jurisdiction, meaning the case is open once someone enters community court. That is not reasonable and or a good intervention. If individuals continue to commit multiple crimes while they are in community court and only get 14 days to complete their conditions, I do not believe that that is meaningful and or good intervention to really stop that behavior. So my thought is that some individuals may not be good candidates for community court, meaning if you have 5, 6, 7 cases at one time, there may be another alternative for you other than community court. I do believe that sometimes community court right now, in my opinion, is a one-size-fits-all approach, which doesn't work for everyone. Unfortunately, some people may have to serve a jail sentence because they are unwilling to abide by the court's rules, the conditions of release, and continue to reoffend. So that is what I mean. One size fits all doesn't work. Community court is a great option. However, we must also have to interact when individuals are not abiding by the conditions of the court and are unwilling to actually participate.
Great, thank you. Also a reminder, both candidates, you have 2 minutes to answer, so don't feel like you need to rush if you felt that. Judge Shadid, a similar question then to you, sir. You are known for restarting community court fairly early in the pandemic. Can you explain why it should be among the options in the court's toolbox and what evidence there is to back that up? And what other options do you feel should be explored to improve public safety?
Sure. Well, again, my opponent has stated on multiple occasions she hasn't been on the court for 6 years. This is the first time I've heard her claim that she's been in Seattle Municipal Court. But I can tell you for a fact that she hasn't come to observe community court or have been in a single one of our meetings, which we have every other week with the city attorney's office and the Department of Public Defense. Now, you have to understand that therapeutic courts are on a continuum. Community court for the lowest crimes. We have the consolidated calendar for people who are committing multiple crimes who are already working in the community. Then we have mental health court, which is for people who are far more dangerous and need much more supervision in the community. We also have veterans treatment court. So you can't look at community court alone. When you have people who have multiple offenses going through the system over and over, let me make something very, very clear. Every single person is screened for community court by a judicial officer, every single one. I have a history of excluding people from community court for crimes that I don't think are appropriate for community court. One of the biggest ones is when people throw rocks through windows downtown. Those people do not come into my community court. It is not appropriate. There is too much damage, too much disruption, and charging those cases as property crimes instead of reckless endangerment, which is really what it is. It makes them inappropriate for community court. So yes, every single person, I individually assess them to make sure that they're appropriate for community court. Further than that, my opponent is saying it's one size fits all. That's absurd. every single person who is accepted in the community court gets an individualized treatment plan from a pretrial services officer, every single one. They have input into the plan, and the pretrial services officer also assesses what their major barriers are and what they need to do to address those barriers. Now, luckily, my opponent has read at least enough to know that we do have a 2-week, 30-day, and 45-day jurisdictional period. But what she didn't mention is you only get 4 shots at community court. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do in community court, you are prosecuted in mainstream court under the full force of the law. So, there's just a real fundamental misunderstanding that my opponent has of how the court works and what we're doing.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Judge Shadid. And I want to get to the next question, but first I just want to make sure, Ms. Rose-Akins, did you have any rebuttal to that?
I do. So my opponent stated that you only get 4 shots at community court. However, an individual on their first shot could have 5, 6 multiple cases. And I have seen that myself because I have reviewed community court dockets. Additionally, my opponent spoke about individuals who throw rocks through windows, that they're not appropriate for community court. However, reviewing some of these dockets, I've seen that individuals who have in fact committed property damage or thrown rocks over highways have been allowed into community court. And my opponent spoke about low-level crime. I've seen individuals who are stealing upwards to $970 worth of items from Lowe's who are allowed into community court. So those are some of the issues I'm addressing.
Thank you. So for the next question, many repeat offenders that go through both municipal and superior court have behavioral health issues. They're so severe that they end up being found incompetent to stand trial, and many can't get court-ordered competency restoration treatment or even evaluated in some cases because of a lack of capacity and resources. And in some cases, they end up being released as they wait for those evaluations. These are often the same people, though, that end up committing some of these violent random attacks that we see downtown with no real support when they're released over and over and over again. Judge Shadid, how much of an impact is there as far as municipal court goes? I know that there's mental health court, but what is the ultimate solution here, and what is your role in getting to that?
Sure. Well, you have to understand that every single person who has ever been through a competency evaluation has mental health flags placed upon them. So whenever they're arrested, they will come through mental health court, where I've been presiding over the past 4 years. So you can't separate out mental health issues from mental health court, because that's how the court addresses these types of people. Now, I have expanded greatly services for people who have been found incompetent in the past and who will probably be incompetent in the future to stand trial. These people are unprosecutable by the city and therefore have to be handled by the civil authorities. There's a civil commitment process. I have been shocked and awed at, people who have come through my court on random attacks in the community over and over again, found not competent to proceed, which removes my jurisdiction over the person. I refer them to the civil authorities and they are released over and over again. A really famous case that happened a while ago was 3 different random assaults, 3 different times where they were found incompetent, and then the person tried to throw a woman off a bridge. And finally, the civil authorities detained that person on that 4th time. This is just unacceptable. We need to have better ways, more capacity. Let me tell you about some of the capacity we need. We need more respite beds. We need to expand programs like LINK that specifically works with mental health, with people suffering from mental health issues. We need to have treatment on demand. We have to have inpatient treatment, dual diagnosis on demand. Unfortunately, the court can't provide these types of services because we lose jurisdiction over people who are found not prosecutable due to incompetence. But I have been a leader in advocating for these types of solutions, and I will continue to do so.
Judge, Ms. Rose-Akins, I would ask you the same question. Given the lack of capacity and resources at every level, how can you as a municipal judge help ensure people experiencing these severe behavioral health issues don't threaten the public safety downtown?
Yes, and that is a great question. Our mental health system is unfortunately broken and underfunded. I believe one thing, reviewing some of the mental health court cases and reviewing some of the issues happening downtown, what I've seen is that sometimes we will competency is fluid. So just because you were found incompetent in March doesn't mean you're going to necessarily be incompetent in June or July. Some of these issues, unfortunately, may be drug induced. So I think one thing that could be done initially, again, when individuals are in contact with the court, is maybe doing another competency evaluation to really assess what is happening to that individual today. As I said, competency is very fluid. Outside of that, honestly, I think I've been looking into all these other different programs that are outside of the government, and they really help assist with some of the mental health issues. So as I spoke about earlier, I just learned about this organization called Transitional Resources, and other entities like that maybe the court can assist in maybe releasing people into those type of programs that are intensive mental health programs that can probably better serve those individuals than some of what we've been doing recently.
I want to follow up with both of you on this conversation and ask about advocacy, because we're talking about a lot of things that you're suggesting we should do outside of the court. And I'm curious if you could explain what you see as a municipal judge's role in that kind of advocacy. Ms. Rose Akins, can we start with you?
And advocacy in the sense of
starting programs, a real world solution, some of the things you and your opponent have been talking about here just in the last few minutes.
No, absolutely. So I believe the judge's role, you're a gatekeeper, but also you have to be somewhat innovative. We're dealing with times where, many years ago, the only option was incarceration. And now we're in a place where, yes, maybe incarceration has to happen. However, we have so many other tools to our disposal that we really need to work to better build. And I think advocacy, in my opinion, is that we need to break out of the court and actually go and meet people and build programs that really can help people. My issue with community court is that I don't feel like it's really helping people. When you only take 30 days of jurisdiction, how can you meaningfully provide assistance to people? So my thought is, how can we better have release services where we're releasing people into housing, we're releasing people into job opportunities. The community wants to help, businesses want to help. So how do we bring them to the table and make them a part of the conversation? And I think we can do that when we're doing more probation services that actually include the community, include businesses, and include a voice of the individuals that live in our communities. I think that's what's missing, and that's what we need to do better. Build partnerships, build collaboration to build out a system that works with the criminal justice system, but is outside of it, that we can really help people.
Judge Shadid, let's let you get in a rebuttal here. And also, if you could also describe your position, your view of a judge's role in advocacy.
Yeah, a judge's role in advocacy is enormous, and I have taken a lead in advocacy. You might have noticed that I had a editorial recently in The Urbanist, in which I talk about solutions to the issues out there, both within the therapeutic court system and in the community. These are things that judges have to fight for. We need better funding for mental health services. We need treatment on demand. One of the most important things that we can advocate for is we need inpatient treatment on demand. On a regular basis, I have to hold dangerous people in jail who I cannot release because they will randomly attack people. Now, some of these people are competent and so can be held in jail for a period of time. And I wait until I get an inpatient treatment bed. Sometimes these people actually ask me to hold them in jail, waiting for an inpatient treatment bed, because they know they'll relapse if they get out. And sometimes they wait for months before they can get an inpatient treatment bed. This is completely unacceptable for everybody involved. We need to have detox centers, and then we need to have treatment on demand for these people, and we need to prioritize that. Furthermore, I do think the jail can do more. And I think that, picking on the King County Jail, I think everybody can do that, but there are very big flaws in the program. Jail Health Services has done a wonderful job of getting people connected to mental health medications. They have done a wonderful job of inducting people on the Suboxone, a life-saving opioid treatment, but there needs to be more. And there needs to be, a difference between just straight incarceration where you're in a jail cell for 23 hours a day and maybe some sort of halfway center in the jail where we can start connecting people more in a more therapeutic environment. This has been asked for many times. It's something that we absolutely need, something in between that we haven't gotten yet. We have so much space. The problem with our fragmented system, though, is the King County Jail is under the county's jurisdiction and the Seattle Municipal Court is under the city's jurisdiction. This kind of fragmentation is the siloing that we all talk about, and it really hurts as far as collaboration. And that's what I'm trying to break down.
Thank you, Judge Shadid. So as we wrap up, we're almost out of time. As we wrap up our discussion, we want to invite each of you again to ask the other a question for a 1-minute answer. Now, Judge, Ms. Rose Akins, go ahead with your question first, please.
Okay, thank you. Judge Shadid, when does community court consider the community impact when an individual enters with multiple cases, continues to reoffend while enrolled, but all his or her cases get dismissed?
Okay, well, again, the question itself shows a deep misunderstanding of what's happening in community court. And so I would encourage Ms. Rose Akins to actually come to the court and watch what's happening there. If somebody reoffends while they're in the court, they are bumped up to a higher level of the court and they are forced to do more community service, more life skills class, and connect to more services. If a person commits too many crimes or serious crimes, then they will be screened out of community court. Both the prosecutor and the judge can screen a person out of community court if they start committing more crimes, because this is a violation of their conditions of release, and this happens on a regular basis. Then they are able to be prosecuted under the full extent of the law by the city attorney's office in mainstream court. So, again, so many of these questions that my opponent has could be answered just by her coming to the court, just by her watching. And I'd be happy to walk her through it if she was ever interested in doing so.
Thank you very much for that reply. Now, Judge Shadid, go ahead with your question.
Okay. By your own admission, you have not appeared in the Seattle Municipal Court for 6 years, and yet you've made the centerpiece of your campaign a critique of the way we run community court. Why have you not taken time to spend some time observing and what we do there and asking questions?
So as stated earlier, I've actually have appeared in court, not community court, but in court over the last 6 years. I appeared in court last year. I actually appeared before you for one of those hearings. When I started the city attorney's office, I worked in community court and I saw how that model worked. I have reviewed a number of dockets in regards to what's happening in community court, and I work in the city attorney's office, so I do hear and understand some of the issues that are happening in community court. At times, you have not been the most individual willing to partner and or listen to the city attorney's office when they've asked to screen people out. That's why sometimes people have 6, 7 cases in community court at one time. And even on the community court website or information for the court, everyone gets 6 hours of community service regardless of what level. The levels may change in regards to how much time the court is taking from a jurisdiction standpoint, but everyone gets only 6 hours of community service. So I have spent extensive time reviewing the court docket and reviewing cases of individuals who are in community court. And that is what informs my decision as to the issues with community court. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you to both of our candidates for taking time to talk with us today. We are now going to be doing a bit of switching here to another race. We're going to be talking to the candidates for King County Prosecuting Attorney, Lisa Mannion and Jim Farrell, as we swap out the Zoom here. They also have responded to the DSA's questionnaire that you can find online, and we intend to ask them about many of the issues about public safety downtown that were featured in that questionnaire.
And a reminder that each of our candidates will get 2 minutes to reply to a question. Candidates will mostly be answering the same question, and if rebuttals are needed, they'll be kept to 30 seconds. We're going to try to give time reminders in the chat function of Zoom visible to the candidates to keep everything on track.
And of course, to close the debate, each candidate will get 1 minute to answer a question posed to them by their opponent. But before we get to that, of course, we want to go to opening remarks. Share more about yourself and what you will bring to the position of King County Prosecuting Attorney.
And we're going to use last names to go in alphabetical order. Mr. Farrell, that means you start things off with your opening statement.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And thank you for having us and for doing this important role today. I'm currently the mayor of Federal Way, but I'm running for King County Prosecutor because I'm incredibly concerned, as many of my neighbors and friends are, about really the deteriorating conditions of safety, not only in Seattle, but across King County. And really, actually, in the past 9 years, I've been the mayor of Federal Way, leading a city of 100,000 people and $100 million budget, 600 employees, but also leading a coalition of mayors and elected officials from around King County and business and labor that have been very much concerned about the direction of public safety. I spent 19 years as a prosecutor, 16 of which in King County, 3 at the city of Renton. Tried hundreds of cases. In fact, actually, I'm the only candidate in the race that's ever tried a criminal case or had a criminal case caseload. I've got a real plan on how we need to address these issues. The nearly 5,000 felony case backlog is a serious concern. We need to move with all deliberate speed to knock down that backlog and really address with a decisive manner the state of public safety, not just in Seattle, but around King County. And so I'm very fortunate to have the endorsement of quite a number of individuals, our Congressman Adam Smith and Amy Whalen, State Representative, and Labor and Business, and the police guilds of Seattle, King County, Bellevue, Kent, Federal Way, Des Moines. I think that's all, and also our local fire. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mannion, your opening statement now, please.
Sure. I have met with downtown business owners and I see what you see. And our public safety issues are my #1 priority. Finger pointing and blame will not make our community safer and it will not protect businesses. And as prosecuting attorney, I will lead with action and not rhetoric, and I will act with a sense of urgency that has been missing. I will bring accountability. I will prosecute drug dealers. I will prosecute violent crime, sexual assault, and repeat property crimes. I will be smart on crime and tackle root causes. I will craft long-term solutions to address mental health and addiction issues. And the partnership that I have struck with the city attorney's office is showing results. This association recently reported that property crime is down by 20% and that violent crime is down by 30%. And while this is encouraging, the bottom line is this is not enough. We still have work to do. I am the only career prosecutor in this race. I am the only prosecutor who has worked with 100% of the office, all 4 of our divisions, all 600 of our employees. And I will have the experience to hit the ground running and to make our communities vibrant again. And I would welcome the opportunity to earn your trust, and I would love to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Farrell, the first question goes first to you. What do you see as the King County Prosecuting Attorney's role in increasing public safety in downtown Seattle? How do you envision working with other local and state jurisdictions to ensure strong coordination and alignment to holistically address public safety? For 2 minutes, sir.
You bet. Well, I've already put together a coalition of law enforcement in cities, over 15 mayors and elected officials from throughout King County. But one of the campaigns slogans that I have in my campaign is, I believe in second chances, but not revolving doors. And we've got really a chronic issue of people getting arrested and immediately released by the King County Jail. They were under COVID restrictions. It's a real issue where people are booked over and over and over for the same crimes. That has got to be addressed. We've got to make sure that we are addressing the root causes of crime, making sure that we are addressing, drugs and alcohol, and making sure that we collectively do that. But as far as a coalition of mayors and elected officials and police guilds, I'm very proud of that. I can tell you that right now that really there needs to be a real emphasis on violent crime, and the type of things that are happening in Seattle. And that really requires coordination with the Seattle Police Department, with all the police departments, and really address things from high impact offenders and making sure that we're doing everything we can, that once we have an individual in custody, that they're actually charged. And I'm very concerned about the direction that the office has gone in, and that's where I'm running. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mannion, the same question to you. What do you see as the prosecutor's role in increasing public safety in downtown? How will you work with other local jurisdictions to holistically address public safety? For 2 minutes.
Sure. The prosecuting attorney's office must, of course, address public safety. That means we have to prosecute violent crimes, sexual assault, repeat property crimes. We also have to address incidents of crime. The issues facing our community as a result of the pandemic, reduced police resources, and our housing and opioid crises, it's complex. And it's also going to take collaboration. The partnership that I struck with the city attorney's office, trading notes every day on cases, aggregating certain misdemeanor crimes into felonies, it's having an impact. And that type of partnership can happen with every city attorney in all parts of King County. We also know that we have individuals who are struggling with addiction and mental health issues. We have to ensure that we have the capacity to accept individuals into mental health court, veterans court, drug court, and we also have to increase capacity in treatment on demand based in our community. Not everyone struggling with mental illness or addiction has committed a crime. It's a yes and approach. I believe in public safety, and I can tell that the partnerships I have are having an impact because this association is seeing the results. And it was recently reported in the Seattle Times that things are looking up. Now, that is not by any means a sign to declare victory. It means we keep going until all parts of King County are safe, until all parts of King County are vibrant again.
Go to the, thank you for the next question. And you kind of both touched on this a little already, but first, what specific investments should be made in prevention efforts? And are there state legislative actions in 2023 that you see as important to improving public safety? Ms. Mannion, we'll start with you.
You know, one of the things that I would like to do is I would like to work with the 28 state lawmakers that have endorsed me and change the laws around our involuntary treatment at court. I want to transform that court into the important safety net that it can and should be, one that offers people help and services before they decompensate and commit crimes. When I was a brand new prosecutor and worked in involuntary treatment at court, if you were walking around downtown Seattle with a hatchet, chances are you were going to spend 72 hours getting help. I'm not sure that's the case right now because I have public defenders who are fighting for the relief to nothing. If we work with state lawmakers and change that law to make it a collaborative court, we can build a model where we have crisis responders, prosecutors, judges, public defenders working together to ensure that people get help before they decompensate and commit crimes in the least restrictive means possible. The other benefit of making this a collaborative therapeutic court is we can tap our mental illness drug dependency tax dollars to pay for it. We know we don't get enough state dollars, and we have great need in our community. This is the type of leadership and innovation that I will bring to this role.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Same question to you. What specific investments should be made in prevention efforts? And are there upcoming legislative actions that you think would help with public safety?
Well, I'll address the legislation first. I've been very concerned about the essentially de facto legalization of the current sentencing scheme requires 2 prior warnings before officers can make an arrest. And as somebody who leads a police department of 150 officers, it's been very concerning about the restrictions that have been placed on them. And so we have got to get some sanity back with regard to our drug laws. And that's why, you've got people literally using in the street and the officers can't do anything about it. So you've got to bring some reasonableness back to that law and make sure that open level of drug dealing and using and possession is not allowed openly. Secondly, the pursuit laws that have literally preventing law enforcement officers in this crazy, law that prohibits officers from pursuing cars that they know are stolen. Some of these folks, all they need to do is get behind the wheel and push the accelerator down, and they're gone. That's why car theft statewide has gone up 88% just in the past year. We need to get down to Olympia and fix those laws and work in partnership with our legislators. And I think investments, we really need to make sure, I'll tell you, there's a crisis over at the King County Jail. There are 100 officers down at the King County Jail, and it's dangerous. We need to make sure that we've got the kind of investments to make sure that those things are fully staffed and that we're obviously want to make sure with drug treatment and those kinds of issues, but we need to make sure the infrastructure is there to make sure we've got public safety in place.
And I want to just go on a quick follow-up to what you've said there, Mayor Farrell, specifically about the Blake decision and the current law, which of course requires that you get pre-arrest referral to services for the first two.
Yep.
Right now, there's been a work group working on a solution because this law is going to sunset, right? And we're going to have nothing again.
Right.
What have you been a part of those conversations? And if not, what specifically do you want to see lawmakers do to fix Blake?
Well, first of all, I've been talking about this. The Blake decision required the legislature to add one word to the statute, knowingly. This isn't some high mountain to climb. They have made this so much more complicated. I mean, there's the one issue about legality, and then there's the other issue of what happens. Well, have really slurried this up, and they need to fix the law, add the one word to make it, add the knowingly part. That's the Blake decision. And then, yes, I've been involved in multiple conversations with legislators, and those are ongoing right now. I've got some scheduled, with the state senator and some other mayors as well, and our legislators. Those conversations are ongoing. But you've got to eliminate these two prior warnings or diversions, because that's completely unenforceable. And this is why understanding how these street level interactions occur, and how street level dealing occurs. You've got to have that practical experience. You've got to understand those things. So I think those are the conversations. But this is a quick fix.
Thank you very much. And I want to actually give Ms. Mannion a chance to say what specifically you would like to see the Blake fix look like.
We have to be really honest that we don't have the infrastructure to track whether people get 2 diversions or not. We just don't have that, and it's onerous on police. I have been working with LEAD. I've been working with the King County Sheriff's Office. I've been working with the mayor and with the executive to figure out how do we ensure that people have treatment on demand? How do we increase community-based treatment models? How do we ensure that people get the help they need, whether they're encountering the criminal justice system or not? Because ultimately what we want the behavior to stop. And we know that it won't stop without intervention. We also know that many people who are beating addiction and substance use disorder, just like other individuals who are beating serious health conditions, they may suffer relapse. So we have to plan for that. We have to work with the scientists who understand addiction science and plan for that in a way that keeps our community safe and also keeps the individual experiencing relapse safe. I will partner with police, and I will partner with the 28 lawmakers and the 215 individuals and organizations who have endorsed me, because public safety is my #1 priority. And we have to address not just drugs and people who are dealing drugs, but also the root causes of the behavior. We all want the behavior to stop so that our communities can be safe and vibrant again.
I want to talk a bit about prolific offenders. As you know, a 2019 report commissioned by the DSA and other partners showed how a substantial amount of crime and disorderly behavior in downtown Seattle is committed by a relatively small number of people. The city attorney's High Utilizers Initiative identified 118 prolific offenders. I want to find out your position on the High Utilizers Initiative and what role the King County Prosecutor plays in that strategy, and more broadly in addressing individuals creating a negatively disproportionate impact on public safety in our city. Mr. Farrell, let's start with you.
You bet. Well, we really needed to get our arms around what was happening at the King County Jail with this catch and release, and it's just this really unacceptable, from a community standpoint, from the businesses in the downtown, from people just trying to live their lives and go to work. I've talked to countless people that just try to get off a bus or get on a bus or get to work, people who run businesses. You've got to address those high impact offenders. You've got to make sure that what's going on over at the jail is being addressed, that they actually have the officers in place, that they don't have the COVID restrictions, or they've relaxed that to make sure that you've got the right capacity. We're going in the wrong direction in which we're lessening capacity over at the jail instead of making sure that when somebody commits one of these crimes, that they're held for appropriate bail and charge. So there has to be a real intentionality about addressing that. And that high impact offender is utilized in a number of different ways, whether it was in the car theft initiative, we're addressing a small number of offenders that were committing most of the crimes, or the repeat burglar initiative, where you really need to hone in on those individuals and your crimes will drop. And that there needs to be some real intentionality there.
Ms. Mannion, what is your position on the High Utilizers Initiative, and how do you see the role of the prosecutor's office?
Well, I have actually been partnering with and working with the Seattle City Attorney's Office on their High Utilizers Initiative. And also we have been sharing notes on the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office's High Priority Prolific Offender List, which we started in 2017. So we took the Residential Burglary Initiative and the Car Theft Initiative and rolled it into one. So when we trade notes with the City Attorney's Office, we can address multiple misdemeanor crimes and combine those and file those as felonies for greater accountability. And we've been doing that, and we're seeing the impacts of that. That type of partnership can happen with every single city attorney's office in King County. We also know that during the pandemic, Pete Holmes was not prosecuting a lot of downtown misdemeanor crime. And we know that because our new city attorney, Ann Davison, has shared that she inherited thousands of unfiled cases where the statute of limitation has run. We in the prosecuting attorney's office have been in the courthouse every single day of the pandemic, doing the hard work of prosecuting felony crime. We have felony jurisdiction in all parts of King County, in Bellevue and in Seattle, and those two cities looked very different during the pandemic. My partnership is having an impact in improving public safety in downtown Seattle. We can do that in all parts of King County. Public safety is my #1 priority. I will have the back of businesses and our business community. I hear your concerns. I see what you're seeing. I work downtown. My employees work downtown. My daughter goes to school in the CID and rides the bus. I want all of us to feel safe and be safe where we work, live, play, and go to school. And that is the hard work that I am doing right now.
Thank you. Recently, King County declared fentanyl a public health crisis. What do you see as the prosecuting attorney's role, and what is your plan to address the proliferation of drug sales and all of the activity that comes with that that's happening out on our streets? Also, what solutions do you see for cases where those people won't take treatment services? We'll start with you, Ms. Mannion.
You know, fentanyl is a public health crisis, and dealing fentanyl is a crime. We have to address drugs. Dealing fentanyl is illegal, and that behavior will not be condoned and it will not be tolerated. It is not welcome in our streets. It's not welcome in our communities or in our neighborhoods. We also know that we have to address the root cause of crime, that we have individuals who are suffering from addiction and substance use disorder. We have to be honest about the size of the need in our community. And we have to ensure that we have adequate access and capacity to drug court, mental health court, and veterans court. We also have to increase the capacity to community-based treatment and treatment on demand. Individuals shouldn't have to come to the criminal justice system just to get help. And having this yes and approach, addressing illegal behavior, holding people accountable, and getting to the root cause of offering treatment. This is something I learned from Nora Mailing, who years ago started our first King County drug court and also went to Olympia to shorten drug sentences on certain drug crimes to reinvest in treatment. I would work with our 28 lawmakers who've endorsed me to look for those types of creative and innovative opportunities to fund the kind of public health and treatment services that we need in our community. But for those who are dealing crime, dealing drugs, not acceptable, not okay under my watch.
Thank you. Mr. Farrell, what solutions do you see for those cases where voluntary treatment is continuously refused?
Yeah, it's refused because, you know, obviously addiction is something where people, when they're in the throes of it, they need to hit a wall, they need to hit a barrier, and that means consequences. And you can't really address the dealing unless you can really address the possession and the use of this in broad daylight. And that's why we need to be down in Olympia. I'll be down in Olympia working with the legislators and leading on this to make sure that you can make possession illegal. That is a critical component of this. And it's not some high mountain that the state Supreme Court has said you can't do. You needed to add one word, and you need to have some common sense solutions to this. And then, you know, there's significant confusion with regard to law enforcement, not only in regard to, you know, pursuit laws, but with regard to how to handle drug cases because of this odd status in the law. That needs to get fixed. It needs to be priority #1 And then once people actually get charged with and are held accountable for that, that's when treatment follows, when consequence follows. Right now, we've got a consequence-free environment, and that's why you have what we've got going on.
Let's talk about diversion and rehabilitation. We're curious about your specific approach to balancing offender diversion and rehabilitation with the interests of public safety, accountability for engaging in criminal activity, and justice and resolution for victims. Mr. Farrell.
You bet. I think you absolutely have to have diversion programs in the criminal justice system, both for juveniles and for adults. It's critical that you allow people the opportunity to course correct meaningfully. But what that means, though, is that you've got to have transparency and accountability. And the RCP, the Restorative Community Pathway that was launched, is devoid of much of that now. And we have tried, me being the mayors of South and East King County, have approached the prosecutor's office repeatedly about adding some safeguards and some transparency, like a case number, appearance before a judge, an understanding of what the program is, a final report. All of those are missing. And so really what you have right now with RCP is a program in which the cities and the community that it serves really are left in the dark about a lot of these resolutions. It was done without any collaboration or coordination with the cities that they serve. Now, the King County Council voted a line item in the budget, but they did not approve this kind of program. And so we need to change these and add these transparency and accountability processes. But instead, the King County Prosecutor's Office is doubling down. Now they're going to roll this out for adults with the same kind of paradigm, and it's just unacceptable.
Ms. Mannion, to the question, how do you balance offender diversion with public safety?
I believe in the power of diversion because I've seen the data that shows that it works. In the juvenile realm, police referrals for juvenile crime have decreased by 90%. And for violent crime, it's decreased by 70%. Now, I also believe in accountability and transparency, which is why I openly share the results and the impact and the success of diversion programs. Similarly, with restorative community pathways, early results show that it is working. It has an 8% recidivism rate compared to the 22% recidivism rate of traditional prosecution and detention at 12th and Alder. The reason we know that it has an 8% recidivism rate is because some of those young people come back to us. They commit new crimes. There are privacy laws that protect the identity of juveniles and adults, but we know who they are. And when they fail, when they make this mistake, we prosecute those young people. That's how we know that there's recidivism. I also believe that there is transparency. We will always share the results, and we put on our website a 2-sentence summary of every case that has been referred to restorative community pathways. Now, the King County Council not only voted on that unanimously and gave line item to it, the King County Executives Branch also issued a public RFP process, held multiple county and community meetings, and hired 9 nonprofits to work with individuals immediately with young people, their families, and harm parties in their communities, at home, in school, in the evenings and on weekends. And with all due respect to our judges, I don't know a single judge that does that. Now, my opponent talks about adding a case number. When you add a case number, that is prosecution. That's not diversion. There are also certain crimes that are just inappropriate for diversion. Sex crimes, violent crimes, serious violent assaults, gun crimes, they're not appropriate. So we have to balance both the criteria, we have to track for results and outcomes, which I will always share, and we also have to be willing to give people second chances.
Okay, and we're going to wrap that up. We have a few minutes left. I'm going to just ask for a quick answer on this next one. We talked a lot about working with some of the lawmakers in Olympia. Another task force at work right now that is soon to come out with recommendations is the Sentencing Guidelines Reform Task Force. That is often in my reporting, I hear that is part of the problem when we get people back out on the streets that are committing violent crimes is because they can only be held for so long under the guidelines set by state lawmakers. I'll start with you, Ms. Mannion. What would you like to see from lawmakers in regards to that?
I think lawmakers have to look at the data. They have to invite the participation of the communities that we serve. We have to invite the participation of prosecutors, judges, and police. And together we can work and determine what are fair sentences, what is the accountability measure for certain crimes, And with regard to any kind of pre-trial rules, we have to also work together to determine what is the appropriate amount of time that we can hold someone pre-trial? What should the criteria be? What are the release decisions? What are the court rules that govern those decisions?
Thank you. And then quickly, if we can keep it to 30 seconds, Mr. Farrell, your answer to that same question.
The Sentencing Reform Act is fine. I mean, the legislature goes through a process where they review individual offenses and figure out where they're at, and over time, some of those change. But the bail process, the Sentencing Reform Act, and those things, in large part, have gone through that exact process of community buy-in and legislative process. So I don't think that's an issue right now. You always need to take a look at what's new and what's developing, but the Sentencing Reform Act in general is working and making sure that there is a uniformity or a fairness in regard to how cases are adjudicated.
Right. Quickly, as we wrap up, I want to give you each a chance to ask the other question. Mr. Farrell, I'll start with you. Go ahead and ask Ms. Mannion your question.
All right. Well, Lisa and I have done about 10 of these, so I've been. It's great to be here again. I heard that actually. I was actually very surprised to hear Lisa say that there's been a sense of urgency that's been missing at the King County Prosecutor's Office, but yet you've been in the office and in this position for 15 years. Why has there been a sense of urgency that's been missing for this time?
I have accomplished a lot as the chief of staff, as the #2 in the office. I have delivered for public safety. I secured $2.3 million to prosecute sexually violent predators. I secured $14 million to address the court's backlog of charged felony cases. I've enhanced victim services by adding 10 new advocates. I formed a new hate crimes unit. I have partnered with business leaders and city attorneys to reduce organized retail theft and property crime. I have done a lot as the #2. But I am not the elected, and I am a different type of leader than Dan Satterberg, and I will use the megaphone that comes to my voice as an elected official to stand out on important issues. I will send a clear message that crime is illegal, that it will not be tolerated, and that there will be accountability. I will also stand up and be really loud in saying that there are racial disparities in our criminal legal system and that those need to be addressed. I'm a different type of leader than Dan, and I will speak up in ways that are important.
And Ms. Mannion, please ask Mr. Farrell your question.
Sure. We know that Mayor Bruce Harrell was a proud Husky Rose Bowl champion. And Jim, on the campaign trail, you have touted your Husky football career. So how do you explain that when it came time for the mayor to choose his team to tackle crime, he chose me as his strongest public safety candidate? That is my question. And I will add that I am proud to have the mayor's endorsement and that he wants me to be the next King County prosecutor.
Thanks, Lisa. That's a great question. And that was a big get for your campaign. He's a great person. He was actually a real Husky legend. I was a walk-on for 4 years, and he was part of that, really. So I have to commend you for that great endorsement. I am proud of the numerous endorsements I've received from numerous mayors from 15 different cities and from around King County. I actually, what's interesting about our campaigns is, just taking a look at not only all my law enforcement endorsements and the mayor endorsements and labor and police, but it's also great to see your wide view of support as well. And it's just interesting to see how the scales are balancing. So, but congratulations on that endorsement, and Mayor Harrell is doing a great job.
All right, well, we are at time. We'd like to thank all 4 candidates for joining us today. We hope you've gained some valuable insight into these races and the perspectives that each candidate will bring to the office.
A recording of this forum will be available on DSA's YouTube channel, and keep an eye on your inbox for DSA's candidate scorecard, providing an alignment rating for each candidate in these races. And remember to vote. Ballots drop the week of October 18th.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.